23 News in Depth with Rick Marino.
We don't want it to shut down because we have the greatest period of time ever. I told you, we have $17 trillion being invested, so the last person that wants it shut down is us. Now, with that being said, we can do things during the shutdown that are irreversible, that are bad for them and irreversible by them, like cutting vast numbers of people out, cutting things that they like, cutting programs that they like.
Now, we'll hear from everyday Americans whose health care has been under assault by Republicans who have enacted the largest cut to Medicaid in American history, triggered a possible $536 billion cut to Medicare because of what happened in their one big ugly bill.
In just a few hours, the federal government will shut down. For how long, we don't really know. For how this impacts you and why this is happening, joining me on the program tonight to speak unedited is Oklahoma U.S. Republican Senator James Lankford himself to explain what's happening now on Capitol Hill from his perspective and why it's possible this time some Oklahomans could actually lose their jobs. Senator, what is the hang-up in the disagreement that has led to this government shutdown? It sounds like a lot of things.
Yeah, this is all New York politics at this point, I'm afraid. Senator Schumer is trying to be able to fight off some primary opponents to his far, far left, and so he's having to be able to show that he can fight Trump and be the resistance. The challenge that he has is this is only a 7-week extension to continue negotiations of what's called a clean continuing resolution. This is literally the status quo of a Biden budget last year, just continuing that on for 7 more weeks while we finish negotiations. We had 13 of these during the Biden administration that were just short-term extensions that were just like this, were passed with a bipartisan majority, never was an issue. And now suddenly Senator Schumer is saying, no, we've got to be able to show we're fighting against Trump, against his hardcore left base. And it just doesn't make sense. So it's not selling well to, quite frankly, most Americans on it. And most people are saying, just stop arguing about this. Just go negotiate it, get it all done. But don't close the government down while you're doing it.
Is some of this trying to roll back the big, beautiful bill?
Well, Democrats have actually put a counter proposal up. This is back to trying to appease their left base. Their counter proposal is they want $1 trillion in new spending. They want a rollback of the one big beautiful bill. They want to have health care for people not legally present in the country. They want to have new climate initiatives. I mean, it's things that are just not rational for literally a 7-week extension. They're not going to get voted anyway. They know the president's not going to sign it. The House is not going to approve it. The Senate's not going to approve it. But they're just trying to appease the politics of their base at this point. All that we've asked and that the House of Representatives has already passed is just a 7-week extension of the current budget to say we're very close to the final negotiations on all 12 of our appropriation bills. While we're negotiating the final bills, let's leave us where we are in the current spending levels, and then hopefully we'll be finished with the bigger budget items by the end of November.
So what does this mean for folks watching this when the government shuts down? It sounds scary, but also if I don't like government, it somewhat sounds like a relief.
Yeah, it's very funny. Some people will celebrate, say the government shut down, and then they'll turn around and say what happened. Other people are trying to get a permit right now. They're trying to do oil and gas development. They're trying to reach out to a national park area or to certain offices with whatever it may be they're reaching out to, and they'll suddenly find the person that they're going to call is now on furlough. They're not there, or they're saying, well, we can't issue that permit during a government shutdown, so you have to wait. If you're a federal employee, you're going to get your paycheck in the next couple of days because you're paid for what your work was already done, but your next paycheck 2 or 3 weeks from now, you wouldn't get. So there's going to be a delay or a gap for that. And a lot of folks live paycheck to paycheck still, and they're very concerned about that. So for federal workers, there's a bigger issue on that. And President Trump has said every single agency needs to determine what's an essential worker. They've got to stay on the job even though they're not getting paid right now. And what's a non-essential worker, they can actually go home. They'll get paid anyway, even though they're home, which is wasteful for the American taxpayer. But President Trump has also said, hey, if you're declared a non-essential worker, maybe we'll just cut you loose entirely. We may just say we may not need you at all long term. And so there's a lot of trepidation in these agencies to say, hey, if I'm declared non-essential, I may not ever return. I may lose my job during this shutdown. And others are saying, well, great, if you're non-essential, why are you there in the first place? So, yeah, there's a little bit more drama in this one than there typically is.
I've been meaning to ask you this for years. I've always seen your press releases about government shutdowns, but you've also been in the minority at times. Is the government shutdown a tool the minority should have to get maybe one or two, maybe not a whole truckload of things, but maybe one or two concessions?
Yeah, I would like to not have government shutdowns, period. And this has been something I've actually supported, whether I'm in the majority or in the minority. I have a bill called Preventing Government Shutdowns that says if we get to one of these moments, like where we'll be at midnight tonight, automatically the funding would continue at current levels of where we are right now. But members of Congress and our staff, we can't travel. We're in session 7 days a week, and you can't do any bills other than the appropriation bills. So it basically locks us in a box and says, do your work. You didn't finish it on time, so you got to stay there until it's actually done. Nights, weekends, whatever it takes, you've got to finish the negotiation. That allows the American people to be held harmless, but puts the pressure on Congress to say, finish your work on time. If you don't, you'll stay overtime until it's actually done. I think that's a better way to do it. Quite frankly, government shutdowns make us look terrible on the world stage as the whole world says, what's the problem with the Americans? It wastes taxpayer dollars every time it happens because you have the shutdown and the restart and all the drama and people go on furlough. And so you literally spend a lot of money that you waste. You're paying some federal employees to stay home and not be productive, so you lose that productivity. It's better just to say, keep it open, but keep Congress fighting on the hard issues, that is the budget. There are budget problems. We should fight those out, but we shouldn't hurt the American taxpayer in the process.
I do want to go back to the possible firings of people long term.
Yeah.
Are those mainly bureaucrats in Washington, or could some Oklahomans be caught up in this? I mean, my parents were non-essential federal contractors, and when it snowed, they stayed home. Yeah. So are any Oklahomans caught up in that possible firing?
Could be. We don't know yet. Each administration makes their own decisions as they go through it. You'll remember several years ago during the government shutdown under President Obama, he closed down all the national parks. He was the only president that did that during a government shutdown. But every president does it a little bit differently. This president's saying, hey, when we shut down, I'm going to look at any federal employee around the country that's considered non-essential and have to make a decision on should they be there long term at all. So we don't know yet how President Trump will actually handle this particular government shutdown.
This is your first shutdown in Republican leadership. Is it different this time for you?
Well, this one's unique because it's dumb in many ways. This one is different because it's normally just a status quo. If we're going to just stay open for a couple of weeks, we have wide bipartisan agreement just to keep the negotiations going. This one feels different because it's so abnormal. There's not a big issue we're dealing with right now on it other than just Democrats choosing to be the resistance. So right now we're trying to negotiate this out. Senate leadership, working with Democratic leadership, just say what is it going to take to be able to come to the table and just keep the government open. But the House has already passed the bill. It's sitting in the Senate. The House is not in session this week. And so the only option is just to be able to maintain where we are status quo for 7 weeks, which in the past was a pretty simple jump.
Senator, anything else you'd like to mention? I'm running out of time.
Nope, I think it's pretty straightforward.
Thank you so much, Senator. We'll be watching. Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this before we go.
Sure.
Give me a guess. How long does this thing last?
Government shutdowns are kind of like a war. It is easy to start. It's hard to stop. So once you shut the government down, you never know how long it takes. Last time we had one under the Trump administration with the Democrats kicked off like they're doing this one, it was over a weekend that we were shut down. And this one, there's a Jewish holiday, that's Yom Kippur, the High Holy Days, that are coming up starting Wednesday night. So we're not going to be in session regardless on that critical Jewish holiday. And so once we start this into Wednesday, we're not going to be in session on Thursday. So we don't know at that point how long this thing extends out.
Thank you so much, Senator. I appreciate it.
You bet.